What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Obviously, we're not at our house. We are in a hotel in San Francisco for the Battlefront 2 event, and it's Wednesday night, and we've been on planes all day, but we have to go ahead and shoot the Q&A a little bit early because we're not going to have time to do it Thursday or Friday. So, let's dive into questions.
All right. So, Griffin wants to know if we think Luke is going to use his green lightsaber in The Last Jedi, because in the poster, he's using Anakin's lightsaber, the blue one.
Right. I mean, it's hard to judge just based off of a poster. A poster is not the entire movie, and I would think that if he is going to use the green lightsaber, that him igniting that lightsaber is going to be a big event. It's going to be something that we're all excited to see. So they're not going to, spoil that on a poster. So, no, I don't think that him having the blue lightsaber on the poster means that we're definitely not going to see the green one. I still kind of think that we will see the green one, and even if it doesn't happen in The Last Jedi, either in Episode 8 or Episode 9, I think he's going to use that lightsaber, and we're all going to freak out about it, and that's just not something that they wanted to give away on a poster.
Okay, next up, Monkey House 143 asks, where did Darth Maul and the Inquisitors get their lightsaber crystals?
Okay, I want to start with the Inquisitors, because they aren't Sith, and the Darth Vader comic, the newer one, has been kind of telling us a little more about Sith mythology, and Palpatine tells Vader that Sith crystals aren't given, they are taken. So Vader has to go on this quest to kill a Jedi and then take his lightsaber crystal and bleed it. The Inquisitors aren't Sith. They don't have to go through that. And again, the same new Darth Vader comic, it talks about how the Inquisitors, most of them were once Jedi. So I think the obvious answer there is that they just took their own lightsaber crystals and bled them. As for Darth Maul, that's where things are a little bit iffy. We have seen him in the Darth Maul comic face and kill a Jedi Padawan, but as far as we know, he didn't take her lightsaber crystals, and he already had the red lightsaber. He was always in Legends treated as more of an assassin anyway, so I kind of feel like Palpatine was withholding some things from him and just kind of stringing him along, even in the canon. And let's say an Inquisitor weren't a Jedi, just some random person that had Force powers, and maybe this is true for Darth Maul as well. The book Complete Locations shows that Palpatine had a collection of his Sith artifacts, and he actually hid them in the surgical center where Darth Vader was rebuilt. And one of those artifacts is a giant kyber crystal, and it says in the book that it was used to they would take slivers from it, and they would use those kyber crystals in dark side lightsabers.
Once a Man wants to know if Luke is going to be as aggressive in The Last Jedi as he was in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, so the examples you give are when he force chokes the Gamorrean guards and he kills everyone on the sail barge at Jabba's palace, or Jabba's sail barge. I don't think he's going to be that way. Based on what I've seen in the Shattered Empire comic and the Legends of Luke book, granted the Legends of Luke book is mostly made up tall tale stories, but just based on what I've seen of Luke post Return of the Jedi, I just think he's going to be more like Yoda, where the Jedi don't use the Force to attack. I think that in Return of the Jedi, he was dabbling in the dark side, and it was a danger that he might fall to the dark side, but at the end, he prevails, and he tells the Emperor he will never turn. So I think he is probably going to be more along those lines. I think he's going to be more in a I don't even want to fight. He doesn't want to be involved. That's kind of where I see him at mentally for The Last Jedi. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Daniel Considine wants to know if we're going to get any more Rogue Squadron material from the new Star Wars canon.
I'm sure we will. I'm kind of like you. When they first announced Rogue One, I was like, oh, this is going to be about how Rogue Squadron came to be. And now, like you also said in your question, I think Rogue Squadron was more likely just named after Rogue One, the team that stole the Death Star plans. I'm positive they're going to pop up here and there. I don't know that we're going to get another series like X-Wing in Star Wars Legends that's based around Rogue Squadron. I kind of think if they're going to do something like that, it would probably be surrounding Wraith Squadron from the Aftermath books and in between, because we know that Wedge and Snap Wexley were involved in that squadron between the Battle of Jakku and The Force Awakens. So I kind of feel like if they're going to explore an X-Wing squadron, that would be the one they'd focus on. But, I mean, I've loved the X-Wing books of Star Wars Legends, so I hope that they do a lot more with Rogue Squadron. I don't know. I feel like Wraith Squadron is just more likely.
Adam Thomas wants to know how Leia seems to remember her mother, Padme, as she talks about her in Return of the Jedi.
That whole segment is very ambiguous. I mean, she says that she has mostly feelings and images. I don't think it's anything specific. I mean, I do think that at the time of Return of the Jedi, they were like, yes, she knew her mother growing up. But obviously that got changed in the prequels. They did kind of address this in the Princess Leia comic, which takes place right after the Battle of Yavin. And Leia is trying to gather all of the surviving Alderaanians that are scattered throughout the galaxy. She travels to Naboo, and she sees like a stained glass image of Padme, and it kind of turns and looks at her. That's kind of what I think they're referencing, that it's just some sort of connection through the Force, that somehow she has these memories of Padme. I don't think she has, like, literal memories of Padme growing up. It's just more something Force-based. I think that's what they're getting at. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where I left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained goodies like audio commentaries for the films and monthly giveaways, and the combined donations really go a long way in supporting the channel.
On to YouTube questions. Screen Ninja asks, what do you think of a Star Wars Netflix show based around the crew of an Imperial or First Order Star Destroyer?
I mean, it doesn't really have to be a Netflix show. That sounds like a very almost Star Trek idea to me, and like I would be for it. I like the idea of the crew members of this capital ship, and maybe every week they have to go pacify a new planet. Or even, like, we could see them solving problems. The new canon has been doing a pretty good job of not only humanizing stormtroopers like Finn, or I mean, like, even the guy that bumped his head in A New Hope, they gave him a story. We've been seeing a lot of things. Ciena Ree in Lost Stars, like, there's more and more stories about Imperials that are sympathetic. And I think we could, explore that in a show and even see how the Empire was good for the galaxy, because I think probably in some ways it was. Ultimately, they were ruling the galaxy through fear, and if that's the way you're ruling, then the galaxy isn't truly free. But I do see the merits. I don't think the Empire did nothing wrong, but I kind of understand where the people that claim that are coming from.
Nico wants to know which Legends alien species you would like to see return to the canon films.
So this is not quite only legend species, but my answer is the Bothans. And yes, they are a canon species, but we've never actually seen them. They've only ever been referenced. I really liked the way they worked in Star Wars Legends, because they were a very political species, and the main, antagonists, I would almost say, Borsk Phalia, for example, I liked that he would always reference what the Bothans did for the Battle of Endor and always be like, you owe us, New Republic. And they were just kind of this annoying species almost. Not all of them, Borsk specifically, but it was like a bunch of good guys that you still kind of loved to hate. And I would like to see that dynamic return.
Elemental Jedi wants to know, based on what we know in the Star Wars canon so far, who do we think is stronger, Palpatine or Snoke?
I think just from a story point of view alone, we have to go with Snoke. Because if we're all of a sudden facing someone who is significantly weaker than the main antagonist of the first 6 films, that just doesn't seem very interesting. So I think based off the evidence, Snoke is some sort of like very ancient dark side, I don't know, entity, or I don't know what to call him, but from everything that we've read in like the Aftermath trilogy, Palpatine, it seems like he was seeking Snoke out. Whether that was to be his ally or to find and defeat him, we don't know. But I think that if we're just looking at the story and the evidence, I think Snoke is probably going to be stronger.
Krajtov, I don't know. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
One of those might be right.
This person wants to know, how much data can a holocron store, for example, in terabytes?
As far as we know, and this is a Star Wars Legends reference, but in Darth Bane, in the Darth Bane trilogy, he spends a lot of time researching and building his own holocron. And the work that goes into it, at least for a Sith holocron, the one that he's building, it can store basically an infinite amount of data. So I don't think we can really quantify that. And I assume that a Jedi holocron would be along the same lines as a Sith. I think you can just assume that if you are able to build a holocron, you can put as much information in that thing that you want to. It's like a bottomless USB drive.
Wrapping up, we have Jujace, who wants to know, do you think yellow crystals in the Temple Guard sabers may have been purified Sith crystals?
No, I don't think so. I think they were probably just crystals that came out yellow when they bonded with their Jedi. I'm basing this mostly off of tweets that Pablo Hidalgo has made, even tweets that like I have asked him directly about yellow lightsaber crystals, and I asked if like a youngling goes into Ilum and then they pull out a yellow crystal, do they just like immediately take that from them? And they're like, well, no, I have no crystal. But from what Pablo Hidalgo at least is assuming, and this is all stuff that just hasn't been laid out in stories yet, but I figure he's the best source outside of a story, or one of the best sources. I think that a youngling would go in, they would bond with a yellow lightsaber crystal, they would use that yellow lightsaber throughout their career, and then when that Jedi died, they would take that yellow lightsaber crystal and set it aside for Jedi Temple Guard use from there on out. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel,
and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.